I must have said this at least a billion times on this channel, but with social media being ever present in our daily lives, the way that we consume art is obviously very different. The art community itself has also gone through a lot of change very quickly, which in some ways is good because you never had so many resources before as a beginner artist. And it's also bad because a lot of beginner artists these days are dealing with harassment from outside sources. I'll maintain the fact that it's never been easier to become an artist, but staying an artist is something that's becoming more tricky every day. We turned something that is supposed to celebrate our creativity into a group sport. Every side has to have their point, and everyone has to have their final word. Now, I've talked about this in previous videos, but I'll likely bring this up again, as in today's video, I'm talking about my own unpopular art opinion. I'm Ayasuna, and I make videos, more specifically art videos. And I actually thought that this would be a cute, fun little video to do, I guess, where we can talk about discourse towards the art community, as that's going to be the source of some of the things that I say. Since there's so many topics to cover in the art space, I'm going to break this video into 3 sections. The first section is dealing with specific art materials. The second section will likely deal with specific art techniques. And the last section will probably be talking about the art community as a whole and ways that some people tend to discourage beginners from even getting started. So if you're into that, then don't hesitate to stick around till the end of the video, as well as give this video a like and subscribe. So with that out of the way, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this video. My first unpopular art opinion is that the art community has an overconsumption problem. Now, this isn't any specific artist's fault, but whenever we go on art social media, a bunch of products get pushed onto us. More likely than not, in the way that it simplifies our own art style and makes doing art easier. This is more common with traditional artwork, of course, since we have to buy the products and those products take up space, but this can also apply to digital art too. Let me cook for a second. There's nothing wrong with artists trying a different medium for the first time. What I don't like is that some brands tend to sell their supplies as the cure-all for artists, that if they buy this product, that their arts will magically improve. It doesn't matter if you're using the cheapest supplies that you can find or the most expensive ones. If you don't study the fundamentals of art, it doesn't really matter what supplies you use. Another pet peeve of mine that's related to this topic, I'm sure you guys have seen those videos with all those different marker brands that have like this huge bag with like a billion different marker colors in it. I feel it's that type of content that sort of facilitates the need to want to hoard art supplies, which is something that I'm still struggling with myself. It can feel like you aren't a real artist if you don't have X, Y, or Z supplies, but I want to say for the fact that that is not true. I think for most mediums, if you're a beginner, you really don't need a lot to get started, especially if it's a medium that you have never used before. If anything, I think having a limited color palette actually helps your creativity a lot more. I know this especially be true as a watercolor artist myself. Before I could get more expensive watercolors, I was stuck with using the ones from the dollar store, like the Crayola ones with that weird brush thing that comes with the kit. Well, I didn't exactly have a lot of colors to work with. I had to learn how to mix colors myself. And I think that helped me overall with coming up with different color palettes for my characters and designs. And yeah, not having everything at my disposal made me think about how I wanted to go about doing something. I think sometimes less is more, especially when it comes to painting. This also is true for digital art too. I have a brush pack in my ClipStudioPaint that's over 300 brushes big, which I have downloaded in my Discord if you guys are interested. But I only mainly gravitate towards the default brushes of ClipStudioPaint, plus 2 of them from that pack of 300. I think in all the process videos that I've shown on my channel, I mainly bounce around the same 6 brushes, which 2 of which are the eraser, and the other one is like a blender brush, so that doesn't even really count. I think the main point that I'm trying to get here is sometimes having too many tools can actually be a bad thing for your creativity. You can feel overwhelmed with not knowing what to use first. So if you're trying a new medium, just get a smaller set and see if you even like the medium before committing to something a bit larger. The same goes for digital art. If you're using a program for the first time, stick to the default brushes. Most of the programs that you will use with guarding that, you can tweak the brushes to your liking anyways, so you might not necessarily even have to download another brush. Another unpopular art opinion that I have, which I know might get me some angry comments down below, is that I think it's better for artists to learn how to draw traditionally before they move on to digital art. This is no shade to digital artists. I'm still learning a lot about digital art myself, and I'm having a blast doing it. I think the point goes back to what I was saying previously, that digital art comes with all different tools and settings and stuff, and it can be pretty overwhelming for a beginner. It's sometimes still overwhelming for me, and I've been drawing for over 10 years. I do think it's reasonable to get a cheap sketchbook and like a pen or pencil and start learning how to draw that way. I think sometimes with digital art it's easy to fall into crutches because we can just Control-Z anything we don't like about our art. It's almost as if it's like a controlled environment, if that makes sense. With traditional art, since you aren't always able to cover up mistakes, it makes you more aware about the choices you make as you go along drawing. This is especially true when it comes to constructing lines and form. Now this is just mainly my opinion, and every artist of course is going to be different. If digital is all you have at your disposal, then of course do it if it means that you're making art that you enjoy. Another unpopular art opinion that I have regarding art supplies, and this is probably a bit more specific since I am a painter, I do watercolors, gouache, and acrylics, is that I actually prefer my $3 pack of cheap brushes compared to more expensive brushes. I see no issues with using synthetic brushes, and if anything, I think they're better for watercolors. If I ever need to clean them, I just use a little bit of dish soap and they're pretty much good as new. I guess another add-on to this point is that I mainly use like 2 brushes. I don't really tend to jump around a lot when it comes to brush sizes. I use a round brush in a size 9 and a round brush in a size 6, which I should have pictured. I use these brushes for line art. I use them to color larger areas. They pretty much do everything I need them to do. I paid like $7 for this set of brushes, and I've been using them for over 5 years at this point. I've had minimal shedding, more than when I tried to use real animal hair brushes. And after all this time, they still hold a pretty decent point, I think. Yet another unpopular art opinion that I already talked about in a previous video not too long ago is that I think people put way too much pressure on themselves to complete sketchbooks. They think that they all have to contain finished illustrations, but in reality, a sketchbook should be a place to just experiment and have fun. If you're struggling with that, try to use a cheaper sketchbook with cheaper supplies, that way you don't feel bad with using them. And that segues me to the second phase of my unpopular art opinion video. And if you made it this far, don't hesitate to like this video as well as subscribe, as that would help the channel out greatly. I want to do more creative challenges on my channel. I've been doing a lot of studies, but I feel like I haven't been as creative as I would like to be. So I hope to change that in the near future, but again, thank you for all the support, and yeah, I want to keep making a bunch of videos for you guys. But back to the topic at hand, my next set of unpopular opinions deals with how we go about studying art, and related to the fact that people take sketchbooks way too seriously. I also think a lot of people take art itself way too seriously. I mean, think about it, I used to be a raging perfectionist when I was a teenager, and lo and behold, when I was thinking like that, I often found myself in the middle of burnout. Now, I get getting frustrated with doing art sometimes. Despite your best efforts, sometimes things just don't turn out well. And granted, I don't really do this to make money, I'm doing art as a hobby, but some people treat art like doing open heart surgery. Now, if you're under a commission and there's a mistake, I can understand being upset about that. But if you're making art for your personal self or as a hobby, like I said, then there's not really any major consequence to messing something up. You can just start over. I think knowing when to start over is actually quite important as an artist because, like I said, sometimes we get way too attached to our drawings. It's worth doing 20 sketches of a character design, then stick with one we know we aren't feeling too great about. And starting over gives you a chance to practice something else that you may not have noticed at first. Another unpopular art opinion that I have is that I think style is overrated. I've drawn people, I've done landscapes, I've done everything in between, and yeah, I don't have a set art style, and that's okay. My art style changes depending on how I feel or what I watch during that particular time. I myself, and I can't speak for other artists, don't mind that I don't have a consistent art style, because it feels like my mindset towards art changes every time I pick up the pencil. Likewise, I don't like it when some beginner artists use their art style as an excuse for not practicing, or they use their art style as in place of actual criticism. Now, to be fair, there are people out there that just want to be jerks to younger artists, and I definitely think that's a problem in the art community, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But if you're going to improve or you want to do this as a career, you do need to get used to taking criticism. And in most cases, it is from a place of genuine interest in wanting to help the artist improve. And it also leads back to the point that I was trying to make about how we can get a little too attached to our drawings, even though we know that there's some things that might be wrong with them. Another unpopular take that I have is that if you want to be sustainable as an artist, it makes sense to study things outside of art. In my case, since the story that I'm working on is based on horror and cryptid stuff, I've been looking at a lot of paranormal stuff lately. I've also been studying graphic design quite a bit, and it also ties into what I want to do for this channel, where I want to talk about art history and how we view certain mediums and shows and video games. I actually recommend that a lot of artists take at least a basic understanding of graphic design because it can actually help a lot when coming up with illustrations. If you want to take your art into a more narrative direction, then it helps to understand media literacy for that matter. For my project, The Bookkeeper's Daughter, a lot of it deals with supernatural / paranormal stuff, so I've been looking at a lot of folklore / mythology of different parts of the United States and other countries. And in doing so, I think it has helped me at least be a little bit more cognizant of my artwork. And being more well-rounded on certain issues is actually a net positive, I think, for artists and people in general. It's so easy to be sucked up into a social media algorithm that we forget about other things that exist or other events, and I don't necessarily think that's a good thing for humanity in general. Another unpopular art opinion that I have is that I don't really think anything is too hard to draw. In fact, I think it's more of a matter of patience as opposed to not being able to draw something. Now, I understand being frustrated with drawing hands, and I'm still learning how to draw hands efficiently myself. I don't really see it as like a chore or something that I feel like I'm forced to do. I know that if I'm going to improve, I just have to learn how to do it. And I don't really think that's necessarily all that difficult to do. I could be doing more studies for hands for sure, and that's not really anyone else's problem but mine for not really taking the time to do it. Another unpopular art opinion that I know might be a little bit heated down in the comments. I see no issue with tracing in most cases, unless you're trying to pass out someone else's artwork as your own and trying to make money off of it, then yeah, I think that's kind of scummy behavior. If you're going at it with the intention to learn form or structure, I see no issue with it. Though sooner or later you are going to have to draw your things on your own and not have to necessarily rely on a trace, but I think getting down the lines is at least important in the beginning. On streams on twitch.tv/isina19, sometimes I do little traces over my poses if I'm trying to understand the pose, or see which way the limbs are supposed to go. Yet another unpopular art opinion, and another opinion that I don't necessarily know why we have to talk about in a big year 2025, is that there's nothing wrong with taking inspiration from a particular art style. We all had to learn from somewhere. Now, this is not an advocate for AI artists or anyone who uses Gen AI. The argument that I'm making is a little bit different. I've seen discourse online saying that you had to ask an artist for permission to draw the art in their style, which I don't know if it's an overreaction from AI art, like I said. Now, again, I obviously understand if someone is blatantly copying from another artist, that's not cool. We grew up learning that plagiarism is never cool. Especially if you're doing it in a place to make money. That's scummy behavior again. And yeah, don't do that. But I don't see the issue with trying to replicate your art in another style. I seen this with Studio Ghibli art earlier this year. And also when Arcane Season 2 came out, a lot of people just tried to replicate the Arcane art style. Now, people who do that aren't thieves, they're just appreciating an art style that they really like. And there's nothing wrong with that. If it's studying art out of appreciation for it, I don't think that's something we should be gatekeeping. This leads me to my next unpopular art opinion. Should we separate art from the artist? Now, studying art from the old masters is sound art advice that a lot of people are going to tell you on the art space. There's a reason why certain people draw things a certain way for so long. It obviously works. And obviously, values from like 100+ years ago are going to be a lot different than they are now, unfortunately. But I'm not going to hold it against an artist if they choose to study from someone that's deemed problematic. Take J.C. Leyendecker for instance. He's one of my most favorite artists of like all time. His use of colors and composition is something that I want to mimic in my own art style. Part of the reason why his composition looks so strong is that he was studying from real-life models. And I don't think most people would disagree that he's not an amazing artist, because he absolutely is. But some of his subject matter is a bit on the stereotypical caricature side. And while he did mainstream LGBTQ couples in popular media, he did sort of lack when it came to representing characters that weren't white, mainly playing into the whole mammy stereotype. Now, I get why some people would obviously be upset about that regarding his older artwork, but I think it's actually important to talk about situations like that because I don't really believe in censorship. Even though he isn't exactly squeaky clean, and obviously nobody is, and I'm not excusing racism at all, if people can take something from his art style to improve their own artwork, it doesn't mean that they're a bad person. And taking it as such makes no sense. We can learn from people but still not advocate for what they do. And that leads me to another unpopular art opinion, apparently, that censorship is bad. In most cases, people are using it to advance an agenda. I never think it's good to stray away from a topic just because it's hard to talk about. Similarly, I don't think it's good to stray away from darker topics in art because it isn't exactly pleasant to look at. Art has been used to justify horrible things. And if we lose sight of that as artists or people who just enjoy art in general, that's a net negative for society in general. Understanding media literacy and the underwhelming themes in our art and shows that we consume is definitely helping us be more well-rounded individuals. Now, the increased censorship for video games and other forms of media should definitely be a lot worrisome, especially to artists. I'm surprised more artists aren't really talking about this issue about surveillance and these social media platforms. First, they're coming for independent game devs, but they'll surely come for artists and illustrators next. It won't just be with pornographic images, it'll be for anything, whether it's LGBTQ plus content or content that promotes diversity. I've seen other YouTubers talk about this, but I haven't really seen any response from the art community, and I think that's a little bit disappointing. It's like the canary in a coal mine situation that nobody will know that something's going on until it's a little too late. It isn't as if these issues won't go away if people don't see them or talk about them. And I might have a slightly controversial take, but I think even younger audiences can appreciate darker themes if fleshed out properly. I don't see a world where this online censorship is going to lead to anywhere good for creatives in general. And if anyone has any other opinions to add on to this point, let me know down in the comments. And depending on this situation and how it progresses, I might make a separate video regarding censorship. So if you are into that, then don't hesitate to like this video as well as subscribe. And I also rant about these issues on Twitch, YouTube, and TikTok. I likely will also have my socials pinned in the description too if you're interested. And that leads me to my third section of unpopular art opinions, and these are dealing with the art community. And let me be clear, when I say art community, I mainly mean TikTok and Twitter. Of course, no one site represents all artists, but these are the areas where I see the most problems with. And first and foremost, I think that the art community sometimes focuses on things that don't matter. For instance, that whole jelly art style debate that we had at the beginning of the year. If an artist chose to draw a certain way, why is that anyone else's business? You may not like it, but that doesn't give you the right to talk crap about someone else's art style. No one's art style is inherently better than anybody else's. And anyone else who tells you that doesn't know what they're talking about. But that goes back to what I was talking about how style is overrated to begin with. If you're young, I think it's just important to draw what you like and take studies based on that. I don't really think too much else matters in that conversation. I do also think, as an unpopular opinion, that the art community can make it harder for beginner artists. Now, I didn't really have any issues starting out. Granted, I wasn't really super consistent with posting as I should have been. But I haven't exactly gotten as much hate as other artists have gotten in the past few years or so. But nowadays, it does seem like even the more progressive spaces in the art community have gone quite gatekeepy about newcomers into space, which isn't fair to those who are coming in and generally trying to learn. It can be discouraging when you feel like your own community doesn't have your back. And more often than not, it's over petty stuff too, like I said, the whole art style debate. People feel insecure about their own artwork and in turn start to degrade others. I will say that you can't necessarily get rid of all the toxicity on the internet. I think that's just impossible, unfortunately. I do think in most online spaces, though, you are able to curate the things that you see on your feed, as well as the comments that you receive on your posts. Don't be afraid to get rid of people if they're causing problems for you or your community, or aren't really adding anything, I guess, productive to the situation. I didn't have to deal with half as much of the toxic stuff that is going around now in the art community when I started. I did have to learn how to be more assertive about dealing with those types of people because, yeah, there's no talking to some folks. They are just there to stir the pot and just cause trouble, and it's not really worth it for your mental health, as well as your art itself. Rage bait and engagement farming aren't going to be what improves your art style. You have to study. And it's not really worth getting involved with any of that drama. It doesn't improve your art, and if anything, it just worsens your mental health, which can impact your own will to even do art in the first place. Now, I don't necessarily believe in shutting out all conversation because I do think we should be able to talk about hard topics in a civilized manner. Just like the whole AI art situation. We can't be a united front of artists if we shun beginners who are just trying to get their feet wet in the space. It can be tempting to get into the art drama because of, like I said, engagement, but I swear a week from now, none of that stuff will even really matter. You just kind of have to work on yourself, and that's all you can really do. If you're looking to build a community, obviously good moderation is a good place to start to prevent that from happening. I don't really like to cover drama unless it's something that can impact artists, whether that's the AI situation or the censorship situation that I was talking about. Because obviously these topics are quite important for the art that we post on these platforms, so it makes sense to talk about these changes and any opinions that we have regarding them. If we can't post our spicy fan art, then what's even the point of art or drama to begin with? I think part of it too is that these social media sites are pitting people against each other instead of what's actually the enemy here. Another unpopular art opinion that I have, which might get me some dislikes in this video, is that the algorithm obviously is flawed and not working for a lot of people, but I think a lot of people on social media think that just posting your art is enough to build an audience, but that's not necessarily the case. To build a community, you have to be consistent, you have to reach out to other artists, you have to be a willing participant in said community if you want to continue growing. Getting viral in the art space is not the most realistic thing that's going to happen if you choose to push your art on social media. And even I myself am not following this advice as well as I probably should be as far as marketing myself. It's also why I talked about why I think artists who do want to post on social media should take basic graphic design courses. The reason I say this is that it actually does help you learn how to communicate with pictures and with your drawings. You can better understand true design principles and application. And if anything, if you're a digital artist, it helps you understand the programs that you use, which can better help your digital art process as well. It doesn't really have any downsides here to learn more about design theory in general, as it does make you a better artist. Now, I did say that I wanted to stay away from drama, but yet another unpopular art opinion that I have is a lot of these art influencers are trying to sell shortcuts to improving your artwork. It takes many years to understand the fundamentals of art, and like I said, I've been drawing for over 10 years at this point, and I still am studying the fundamentals. There's not really any shortcut or way to cheat the process. It takes many years of diligence and patience. I already made a video talking about how social media is ruining the creative process in general. We want short solutions to problems that may take years to perfect or understand. That said, it doesn't have to be a binary choice of either studying or working on the things that you enjoy. Art is a journey and not a marathon. But on the same breath, you can't expect to get better without actually putting in the effort to do it. There's no shortcuts, no easy button that will make your art improve other than you keep drawing consistently. If you need a little bit of help or at least motivation to study, it helps to study things that you like. Since we still have a little bit of extra time in this video, I figured I'd do a lightning round of my unpopular art opinions that didn't really fit any other category in this video so far. My first unpopular art opinion here is I hate white gel pens. I'm sorry, I tried Sakura Jelly Roll pens, I've tried other white gel pens, and I couldn't get any of them to work for me. Even when the ink did come out of the pen, I found the results to be quite underwhelming. I feel like white acrylic paint pens and white gouache are way better than white gel pens. They tend to be a bit cheaper too, depending on where you buy them from. Another unpopular opinion is that I don't think that every single art piece that an artist makes has to have some deep meaning to it. I'm pretty straightforward. If I think something's cool and I want to draw it, I just draw it. There's not really any meaning behind it. If you're mainly going to be drawing people, I think it is important to at least learn how to draw different ethnicities. It is a way to combat the same face syndrome issue that a lot of artists run into. It is possible to learn how to draw different facial features without resorting to racist stereotypes. Another unpopular art opinion is that you should ditch your eraser. When I was starting out as an artist, I used to use the eraser quite a lot. I often ran out of the eraser before I used all the lead in the mechanical pencils that I bought. I feel like using the eraser quite frequently kind of leads to the whole perfectionism problem. To combat this, I started switching over to a kneaded eraser, which you can still see some of the lines after erasing. And I also switched to coal erase / colored pencils to do my sketches in my sketchbook, which aren't always erasable either. I've seen other artists do this by switching to sketching with pen exclusively. Doing this can actually help you embrace some of the mistakes that you make with your artwork, and it also helps you improve your confidence as well as choosing how you choose to place lines. I rarely even touch a traditional eraser anymore when it comes to my artwork. It's also making me low-key not like using graphite pencils anymore. I live in a humid environment and my hand sweats when I draw in my sketchbook, so sometimes it makes my pencil smudge all over the page. If you can't afford very thin pencils or those coal erase pencils, cheap Crayola color pencils are fun to sketch with. The dollar store ones also work pretty well in my experience. And there's always the classic ballpoint pen if you prefer to sketch with those as well. But I think that about wraps up my unpopular art opinions. If you guys disagree, then please let me know down in the comments. I like hearing the perspective of different artists. These are just mainly my opinions towards art and the art community. I'm not saying that they're right, I'm not saying that they're wrong. And I'm certainly not advocating for anyone to harass any artists that you think I might be talking about, because that's corny. Don't do that. We already have enough negativity to deal with as is. But before I wrap up here, I want to thank my subscribers yet again, as I know I haven't really been consistent with YouTube uploads lately. But I don't take you guys' support for granted, and I have a lot of exciting things I'm working on in the near future. Some of which I might actually announce in my YouTube Communities tab, so if you're interested, then don't hesitate to subscribe. And in the immediate future, I'm going to attempt to do a lot more art challenges because, again, I feel like I need to express my creativity more when it comes to art. I've been doing a lot of studies, but I feel like my creativity has took a little bit of a backseat lately. So look out for streams and videos where I attempt certain art challenges, as those are things that I want to get in the habit of doing again. But until next time, goodbye and take care, y'all. Peace.